Hey there, fellow deep divers. Ready to unlock your inner giant?
Sounds exciting.
It is. Today we're diving into a book that claims we're all giants in chains, held back only by, well, the limits we set in our own minds.
It's a bold statement for sure.
Right. But this book, New Thought Healing Made Plain, was written back in 1918 by Kate Atkinson Boehme, and her ideas are still surprisingly relevant even today.
What's fascinating about Boehme is that she was like a detective of the mind. She explored all these different healing philosophies before piecing together her unique perspective.
Oh, wow, I like that, a detective of the mind. Okay, so let's get into it. One of the first things that stood out to me was Boehm's idea that thoughts actually have a real physical impact on our bodies.
Oh, yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, we've all experienced this, right? Like when anxiety keeps you up all night or when you get butterflies in your stomach because you're excited.
Exactly. And Boehme uses this everyday experience to jump into some even more dramatic examples, like this one anecdote about a blindfolded person being guided only by the thoughts of others.
Oh.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder about the power of thought. What if it's way stronger than we even realize?
That's where things get really interesting. Bohm talks about these experiments they did at the La Salpêtrière hospital in France, where they were using hypnotic suggestion.
Oh, yeah.
And get this, they could actually make a single drop of water feel like burning oil on someone's skin.
Oh, wow.
I-
Crazy, right?
Yeah. And on the flip side, they could use suggestion to totally prevent the blister from forming, even after a nasty fly bite.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty mind-blowing stuff, right? Like,
Yeah.
the mind can literally override the body's natural reactions.
It is kind of freaky, but it's also empowering in a way. If hypnotists can do this, then what are
Yeah.
we capable of with our own thoughts?
That's exactly Bone's point. She doesn't think this is like some special power reserved for a select few. She's saying we all have this ability to influence our bodies and minds with our thoughts. So how do we tap into that power? Bohm lays out this model of the mind that's kind of crucial for understanding this whole process. She breaks it down into 3 levels.
Yeah.
The superconscious, the conscious, and the subconscious.
Okay, so think of the superconscious as the ultimate source, like the wellspring of all thought and potential, almost like a vast, infinite library containing everything from, scientific knowledge to artistic inspiration.
Okay, I think I'm with you.
Yeah.
And then there's the conscious mind, which is, I guess, what we're using right now
Yeah.
to have this conversation. It's our everyday awareness, the part of us that makes decisions and interacts with the world.
Exactly. And then finally, we have the subconscious, and this is where things get really interesting. The subconscious is like the behind-the-scenes crew running the whole show. It's responsible for automatic functions like breathing and heartbeat, but it also stores all our deep-seated beliefs and habits.
So Bohm's saying that understanding this interplay between the 3 levels is key to unlocking our potential for healing and change. She uses this example of an amoeba, like that single-celled organism, developing a stomach to illustrate how the subconscious can respond to our conscious desires over time.
It's a powerful analogy, isn't it? It suggests that we're not just stuck with, the beliefs and habits we've inherited or developed. We can actually reprogram our subconscious to create new, healthier patterns.
That makes you think about all the things we do so effortlessly every day thanks to the subconscious, like walking or reading. Imagine if we could harness that same power to achieve our goals and overcome our limitations.
That's where Boehm's concept of the superconscious comes in. She describes it as this incredible reservoir of strength, vitality, and creative potential. She even suggests we can tap into different currents of thought within the superconscious, kind of like tuning into different radio stations.
Whoa, different currents of thought. That is fascinating.
Yeah, and she paints this vivid picture of a shining one within each of us, just waiting to be acknowledged, illuminating our lives in those moments of inspiration.
It's like we all have this inner genius just waiting to be unleashed.
Right. And Boehme wants us to see ourselves as capable of accessing this power, no matter what our age is, no matter what our perceived limitations are. She believes we can achieve way more than we think if we can just break free from the mental chains that bind us.
I love this idea of the shining one. It makes me wonder, are those moments when I feel incredibly creative or suddenly have a brilliant idea? Are those glimpses of the superconscious at work?
It's definitely possible. Boehme would say those are the moments when you're tapping into that higher level of consciousness and letting its power flow through you.
Okay, so we've got this amazing superconscious within us, but what about, the challenges and the setbacks that we all inevitably face in life. That's where Boehme introduces this concept of the helping hand,
Hmm.
or vis medicatrix naturae.
Right.
It's this natural healing power that's present in all living organisms, right?
Yeah, it's the innate intelligence of the body, always working to restore balance and well-being. We see it in action, like when a cut heals or when we recover from an illness. But Boehme actually takes it a step further.
She does.
Yeah.
What does she say?
She says this force isn't just operating on a physical level, but also on the mental and even environmental levels. She uses this really insightful analogy. Just as there are physical wounds, there are also wounds of our environment, like broken relationships or even hostile situations.
That's a really powerful way of looking at it.
Yeah,
It suggests that even when we're going through, tough times, there's this force that's greater than ourselves. It's working to heal and restore us.
absolutely.
So even when things feel really difficult, this helping hand is always there, working behind the scenes for our good. Recognizing that can bring a sense of hope and reassurance, right?
For sure, it is a reminder that we're not alone in our struggles. There's this inherent power within us and around us, constantly pushing us toward wholeness and well-being.
It's like having this secret ally on our side, even when we don't realize it. But Bowen doesn't stop there. She goes on to describe this thing called a quickening, a kind of spiritual awakening that leads to a higher state of consciousness. Sounds intense.
It is, but Boehm explains it in a way that makes it feel like a natural process of growth and unfoldment, even though it often involves, challenges and even suffering along the way.
I see. I see.
Yeah.
So she's comparing it to like the development of an embryo, right? Where those initial stages might seem kind of chaotic and uncomfortable, but they're essential for the eventual emergence of this new life.
Exactly. It's a good reminder that even our most difficult experiences can serve a purpose in our spiritual journey. They can actually be the catalyst for some really profound personal growth and transformation.
And Boehme shares this really incredible story of a woman who experienced the quickening as, get this, a tangible spiritual flame.
Wow.
I know, right? Leaving her with this lasting vitality and a complete absence of fear. It almost sounds like a superhero origin story.
It's a great example of how this transformation can lead to a more empowered and joyful way of being. It shows us that we're capable of overcoming even our deepest fears and stepping into a life of greater freedom and purpose.
Speaking of purpose, Bohm dives into this concept of the one will, which she describes as this universal force of good from which all individual wills kind of emanate. So we're all connected on some level.
That's exactly what Boehm's suggesting. She believes there's only one will in the universe, and it's inherently good. It drives creation and evolution forward. Our individual wills are like streams, flowing from this one ocean of will.
But we all know that our individual will can sometimes seem to go against this greater good, right?
Right.
Leading to conflict and suffering and all that. How do we reconcile that?
Boehm uses the analogy of a wave on the ocean. Each wave appears separate, but it's ultimately part of this vast ocean.
Right.
Similarly, our individual wills might sometimes feel like they're pulling us in different directions, but ultimately they're all part of the one will.
So it's not that our individual will is like bad or wrong. It's just that we sometimes lose sight of our connection to this greater force.
That's it. And Bohm believes that when we align our will with the one will, we tap into this source of unlimited power and potential. We're no longer struggling against the current, we're flowing with it.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing our interconnectedness
Mhm.
and choosing to act in harmony with the greater good.
Exactly. It's about surrendering to a wisdom that's beyond our own limited understanding, trusting that the universe is guiding us towards our highest evolution. Bohm also draws these really interesting parallels between her ideas and Professor William James's concept of the second wind.
Oh, yeah. Like that surge of energy athletes experience when they push past their limits.
Exactly.
Like when you're running a marathon and you hit that wall, but then somehow find the strength to keep going.
Exactly. James observed this phenomenon in athletes, but Bohm suggests it applies to all areas of life.
She's saying that we all have access to these higher levels of energy, and we can tap into them by pushing past our self-imposed limitations. Like we have this hidden reserve tank of power we can access when we need it.
That's right. And she shares this incredible story of a man who was crippled by rheumatism, and he suddenly gains the strength to escape a burning house. It's a powerful example of how, even in extreme circumstances, our minds can unlock these incredible reserves of energy.
Oh, that story is amazing. It highlights how much our beliefs about our limits can hold us back. If this man could overcome a debilitating condition in a life or death situation, what are we capable of achieving when we tap into that second wind?
Bohm reminds us that we're capable of far more than we realize, and those beliefs about our limits are often self-imposed. So how do we access this second wind in our own lives?
That is the question, isn't it? Is there like a mental trick or a technique we can use?
Bohm suggests it starts with cultivating a strong mental push, a determination to persevere even when we feel like giving up.
So it's about refusing to let fatigue or discouragement hold us back from achieving our goals.
Exactly. It's about pushing past that resistance, knowing that on the other side of that wall lies this wellspring of energy and creativity.
We become like spiritual athletes, training our minds and spirits to overcome obstacles and achieve our full potential.
Right. And Bohm also emphasizes connecting with our spiritual source, tapping into that feeling of oneness with the infinite energy of the universe.
Like plugging into a universal power grid that can recharge our batteries and fuel our dreams.
Exactly. Bohm believes that the more we practice aligning our will with the one will and tapping into these higher levels of energy, the more effortlessly we'll navigate the challenges of life. She also gives us some practical first aids for healing, and she emphasizes the power of subtle, almost imperceptible motion.
Hmm, that's interesting. What does she mean by that?
Well, she reminds us that matter is constantly in motion, even if we can't see it with the naked eye. She
Uh-huh.
uses the analogy of a plant growing. We don't see the growth happening in real time, but over time, we can observe the results.
It's a reminder to be patient with ourselves and trust the process, even when it seems like nothing's happening.
Exactly. Bohm also highlights the research of Professor Bose, who discovered that plants actually grow in this rhythmic pattern, pushing upward, shrinking downward, and then remaining motionless before starting the cycle again.
So there's this natural ebb and flow to growth and healing.
Exactly. It's like the universe is breathing, expanding, and contracting, and we're all part of that rhythm.
Okay, now let's talk about Boehm's ultimate vision, the blessed life. She describes it as a state of health, abundance, and joy that arises from understanding our true nature as spiritual beings.
It does sound pretty utopian, doesn't it?
Right. Is she saying we can live completely free from suffering and hardship?
Not necessarily. What she's suggesting is that poverty, disease, and unhappiness are not like inherent parts of God's creation. They're illusions, distortions of our true nature.
That's a pretty radical idea. It really challenges how most of us view the world.
It does, but it's also incredibly empowering. If we can shift our perspective to see these things as temporary and ultimately unreal, we can open ourselves up to a whole new level of possibility.
It's like we're living in a self-created prison of our own making. And the key to freedom lies in changing our thoughts.
That's it. Boehming encourages us to use affirmations to reprogram our minds and align ourselves with the truth of our spiritual nature.
We're speaking a new reality into existence, creating a life that reflects our highest potential.
Exactly.
So Bohm is ultimately offering us a message of hope and empowerment.
She is. She's inviting us to step into our power as creators and to co-create a world that reflects the beauty, abundance, and joy that are our birthright.
Wow, that was quite a journey through Bohme's ideas. We covered a lot of ground here. Thought as force, the three levels of mind, the helping hand, the quickening, the one will, and even tapping into those higher levels of energy. It's a lot to digest.
It is. It can feel overwhelming, but the beauty of Boehm's approach is that it's all interconnected. It's like she's giving us this map to our own inner universe, encouraging us to explore and discover that vast potential that lies within.
I think one of the most practical takeaways is the importance of being mindful of our thoughts.
Absolutely. Our thoughts are literally the seeds of our reality. Boehm encourages us to cultivate those positive, life-affirming thoughts and weed out the ones that are limiting or destructive.
We're like gardeners of our own minds. And the more we tend to our thoughts, the more beautiful and abundant our lives will become.
She also reminds us that we have the power to choose our thoughts. We're not victims of our circumstances or our past conditioning. We have the ability to consciously direct our minds and create a new reality for ourselves.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what resonated most with you?
For me, it was the idea of the second wind. It's just a powerful reminder that we're capable of so much more than we realize. And you know, when we hit that wall, that point of exhaustion or discouragement, it's often a sign that we're on the verge of a breakthrough.
That's such a great point. And I think it ties in beautifully with Boehm's concept of the giant in chains. We all have this incredible potential within us, but we're often held back by, well, our own limiting beliefs.
Mhm.
And it's up to us to break free from those chains and step into our power.
I love that image. It's a powerful metaphor for the human experience.
So here's a final thought-provoking question for you to ponder. What chains are you ready to break? And what giant are you ready to unleash within yourself?
That's a question worth contemplating. And remember, you have the power to choose. The power to create a life that's truly blessed, a life that reflects the beauty, abundance, and joy that are your birthright. It really is. Boehm's ideas are so empowering because they remind us that we're not just passive bystanders in our own lives. We actually have the power to shape our reality, to heal ourselves, and to achieve things we might have once thought impossible.
I totally agree. And it's one thing to talk about these concepts theoretically, but how do we actually put them into practice? Bohm does offer some specific techniques. For example, she talks about visualizing the healing current of spirit flowing through the body.
Visualization is a powerful tool for sure, for directing energy and intention. It's like creating this mental blueprint for what we want to manifest in our lives, whether it's, healing a physical ailment or achieving a specific goal.
We're painting a picture of our desired outcome in our minds, and that image helps guide the process.
Exactly. And Bomi also emphasizes the power of affirmations, those positive statements that we repeat to ourselves, either out loud or silently, to reprogram our subconscious mind.
Like rewiring our brains for success and well-being.
Yes. By consistently affirming what we want to be true, we start to shift our beliefs and create these new positive patterns in our thinking.
This reminds me of something I've been experimenting with. I've been trying to replace negative self-talk with more empowering statements. So instead of saying, "Oh, I'm so bad at this," I'll say, "I'm learning and I'm getting better every day."
That's a great example. It's about consciously choosing the thoughts we want to cultivate, rather than letting our minds run on autopilot.
Bomi also talks about persistent effort, right? She compares it to Jacob wrestling with God all night to win his blessing.
She does, and it's such a powerful analogy because it reminds us that healing and transformation, they often take time and dedication. There will probably be setbacks along the way, times when we feel like giving up. But if we can stay committed to our goals and trust the process, we will eventually achieve them.
Like they say, the only way to fail is to quit.
Exactly. And Bohm would say that even our failures can be valuable learning experiences. They teach us resilience, perseverance, and the importance of adjusting our approach when needed.
This all makes sense, but I have to admit, some of Bohm's ideas get a little out there for me. For instance, she talks about this concept of ensouling thought forms. She's saying that our thoughts, combined with our feelings and desires, create these energetic entities that influence our reality.
I know it sounds pretty mind-bending at first, but think about it this way. We know that our thoughts and emotions have a huge impact on our own internal state, right? They can make us feel happy, sad, anxious, or excited. Well, Boehme is suggesting that this impact extends beyond ourselves, that our thoughts actually create a kind of energetic ripple effect in the world around us.
So our thoughts aren't just these fleeting things happening inside our heads. They actually have a real impact on the world.
That's what Boehme is proposing. She even suggests that our thoughts can act as a protective force, forming this kind of energetic shield around us.
That's fascinating. How does that work?
Well, Boehme draws on occult philosophy, especially Vedantic teachings, to explain this. She talks about a monastic plane, which is kind of like the realm where thoughts are formed, and then a kamic plane, where these thoughts get infused with emotion and become even more potent forces.
Okay, I'm trying to wrap my head around this. So we're talking about different levels of reality, almost like different dimensions.
Exactly.
Right.
Boehme is suggesting that there's more to reality than what we can just see and touch. There are these subtle energetic realms where our thoughts and emotions take shape, and they have a real impact.
So it's like our positive thoughts are creating an army of guardian angels, while our negative thoughts might be attracting, well, unwanted experiences.
That's a powerful way of looking at it, and it highlights the importance of being mindful of our thoughts and cultivating those positive emotions.
This ties back to Boehme's emphasis on the interconnectedness of everything, right? We're not just isolated individuals. We're part of this larger web of energy and consciousness.
Exactly. Our thoughts and emotions are constantly interacting with that web, shaping and being shaped by it.
So if we want to create a more positive and fulfilling reality for ourselves, we need to become more aware of the thoughts and emotions we're putting out into the world.
Absolutely. Bohm would say that our thoughts are the seeds of our reality. If we want to reap a harvest of joy, peace, and abundance, we have to sow the right seeds.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and revisit Boehme's concept of the quickening. We talked about it earlier as a spiritual awakening, but she also describes it as this process, one that often involves challenges and even suffering.
Yeah, Boehme sees the quickening as this transformative process, much like the development of an embryo. There are times of rapid growth, and then times of apparent stagnation, and even times of discomfort or upheaval.
She uses this really vivid analogy of the yolk of an egg being fed by the surrounding albumin. She's saying that in a similar way, our life experiences, even the difficult ones, are actually providing us with the nourishment we need to grow and evolve.
It's a good reminder that even our most challenging experiences can serve a purpose in our spiritual journey. They can be these catalysts for really profound personal growth and transformation.
It's easy to feel discouraged when we're going through tough times,
Yeah.
but Bowman's perspective offers a totally different way of looking at things.
Yeah, what might seem like a setback could actually be an opportunity for growth and expansion.
Exactly.
Bohm encourages us to trust the process, even when things feel difficult, knowing that we're being guided and supported every step of the way.
This connects to the idea of the helping hand, doesn't it? Even when we're facing challenges, that force is still working for our good, even if we can't see it at the time.
Absolutely. It's like we have this invisible support system, this cosmic safety net that's always there to catch us if we fall.
Speaking of support systems, Bohm also emphasizes connecting with our spiritual source. That feeling of oneness with the infinite energy of the universe.
Yes. She believes that when we tap into this source, we access this wellspring of strength, guidance, and inspiration, like plugging into that universal power grid that can recharge our batteries and fuel our dreams.
And this reminds me of the concept of the one will, that there's this underlying force of good that's driving everything forward.
Exactly. And Bohm believes that when we align our individual will with the one will, we become channels for that force to flow through us.
It's like we're surrendering to a wisdom beyond our own limited understanding and trusting that the universe is guiding us towards our highest evolution.
That's it. It's about recognizing that we're not just these isolated individuals struggling alone. We're part of something much larger and more magnificent than ourselves.
This whole idea of aligning with the one will is fascinating to me, but I'm also a little bit skeptical. Doesn't this conflict with free will? If there's only one will, how can we have any choice in the matter?
It's a great question, and Bohm actually addresses this directly. She distinguishes between our personal will, which is often driven by ego and desire, and the one will, which is the expression of divine wisdom and love.
So it's not that we don't have free will, it's that our choices are more aligned with the greater good when we're in harmony with the one will.
Exactly. Think of it like this. We can choose to paddle upstream, struggling against the current, or we can choose to flow downstream, allowing the current to carry us towards our destination.
That's a really helpful analogy. It suggests that when we align with the one will, our lives become more effortless and joyful.
Exactly. And it's not about giving up our individuality or becoming mindless robots. It's about recognizing that we're part of something larger and choosing to cooperate with that larger force rather than resist it.
So how do we actually go about aligning our will with the one will? Are there specific practices or techniques?
Bohm offers a few suggestions, things like meditation, prayer, contemplation, and just becoming more mindful of our thoughts and actions. She emphasizes cultivating virtues such as love, compassion, and forgiveness, which help to dissolve the barriers that separate us from the one will.
It's about becoming more conscious of our choices, aligning them with our highest values and aspirations.
Right. It's about remembering that we're not just here to satisfy our own selfish desires. We're here to contribute to something larger and more meaningful than ourselves.
This brings us back to Boehme's vision of the blessed life, which she describes as this state of health, abundance, and joy that comes from understanding our true nature as spiritual beings.
Yes. And she doesn't see this as some unattainable utopia. She believes it's our birthright, our natural state of being.
But we all know that life is full of challenges and setbacks, and even tragedies. How could we possibly maintain this sense of blessedness in the face of such difficulties?
That's where Boehme's ideas about the power of thought, the helping hand, and the one will come into play. She believes that when we understand these principles and apply them to our lives, we develop a resilience, a spiritual strength that allows us to navigate those ups and downs of life with greater grace and equanimity.
So it's not that the challenges disappear, it's that we develop a different perspective, a different way of relating to them.
Exactly. We learn to see them as opportunities for growth, as tests of our faith, and as reminders of our interconnectedness.
We're developing spiritual muscles, strengthening our ability to cope with adversity and maintain our inner peace.
Precisely. Bohm believes that the more we cultivate this inner strength, the more effortlessly we'll navigate the challenges of life. and the more fully we'll experience the blessings that are our birthright. Now let's shift our focus a bit to a fascinating parallel that Boehme draws between her ideas and Professor William James's concept of the second wind.
Oh yeah, we talked about that briefly earlier.
Mm.
It's that surge of energy athletes experience when they push past their perceived limits, like when a runner hits the wall during a marathon, but then somehow finds the strength to keep going.
Exactly. James observed this in athletes, but Boehme believes it applies to all areas of life.
So she's saying that we all have access to these higher levels of energy, and we can tap into them by pushing past our self-imposed limitations. Like we have this hidden reserve tank of power that we can access when we need it.
Exactly. And Boehme provides several compelling examples to illustrate this point. Remember the story of the man crippled by rheumatism who suddenly found the strength to escape a burning house?
Yes, that was incredible. It really shows how our perceived limitations can just vanish when we're faced with a life or death situation.
Precisely. And Boehme uses this story to highlight the incredible potential that lies dormant within each of us. She believes that we're all capable of achieving far more than we think we are if we can just break free from the mental chains that bind us.
It's almost like we have these superpowers waiting to be unlocked. But how do we actually access this second wind in our everyday lives? Is there like a specific formula or technique?
Boehme suggests that it starts with cultivating a strong mental push, a determination to persevere even when we feel like giving up.
So it's about refusing to let fatigue or discouragement hold us back from achieving our goals. It's about pushing through that resistance, knowing that there's a wellspring of energy waiting on the other side.
Exactly. And Boehme also emphasizes connecting with our spiritual source, tapping into that feeling of oneness with the infinite energy of the universe. It's like plugging into a universal power grid that can recharge our batteries and fuel our dreams.
So it's a combination of mental fortitude and spiritual connection. We need the will to push through our perceived limitations and the faith to believe that there's a source of strength greater than ourselves that we can draw upon.
Precisely. Boehme believes that the more we practice aligning our will with the one will and tapping into those higher levels of energy, the more effortlessly we'll navigate the challenges of life, and the more fully we'll experience the blessings that are our birthright. She also provides some practical first aids for healing, emphasizing the power of subtle, almost imperceptible motion.
I'm curious at that. What does she mean by imperceptible motion?
Well, Boehme reminds us that matter is constantly in motion, even if we can't see it with the naked eye. She uses the analogy of a plant growing. We don't see the growth happening in real time, but over time, we can observe the results.
It's a reminder to be patient with ourselves and trust the process, even when it seems like nothing is happening on the surface.
Exactly. Boehme also points to the research of Professor Bose, who discovered that plants actually grow in this rhythmic pattern, pushing upward, shrinking downward, and then remaining motionless before starting the cycle again.
That's fascinating. It suggests that growth and healing aren't always linear. There's a natural ebb and flow to the process.
Exactly. It's like the universe is breathing, expanding and contracting, and we're all a part of that rhythm. Now let's talk about Boehme's ultimate vision, the blessed life. She describes it as a state of health, abundance, and joy that arises from understanding our true nature as spiritual beings.
It sounds like an idyllic state of being. Is she suggesting that we can live completely free from suffering and hardship?
Not necessarily. What she's suggesting is that poverty, disease, and unhappiness are not like inherent parts of God's creation. They're illusions, distortions of our true nature.
That's a pretty radical idea. It really challenges how most of us view the world.
It does, but it's also incredibly empowering. If we can shift our perspective to see these things as temporary and ultimately unreal, we can open ourselves up to a whole new level of possibility.
It's like we're living in a self-created prison of our own making, and the key to freedom lies in changing our thoughts.
That's it. Boehme encourages us to use affirmations to reprogram our minds and align ourselves with the truth of our spiritual nature.
We're speaking a new reality into existence, creating a life that reflects our highest potential.
Precisely. Boehme's message is ultimately one of hope and empowerment. She believes that we have the power to create a life that's truly blessed, a life that reflects the beauty, abundance, and joy that are our birthright.
It's a beautiful vision, and it's inspiring to think that we all have the potential to create this kind of life for ourselves.
Absolutely. And Boehme provides us with a roadmap, a set of principles and practices that can guide us on that journey.
Boehme's ideas really are quite a departure from the way most of us think about health, healing, and personal growth. She's challenging us to look beyond the material world and to tap into the limitless power of our own minds and spirits.
Exactly. She's reminding us that we're not just physical beings, we're also spiritual beings with incredible potential for healing, growth, and transformation.
It's like she's offering us a new lens through which to view our lives, a lens that empowers us to see ourselves as co-creators of our own reality.
And to recognize that we're not alone on this journey. We have the support of the helping hand, the guidance of the one will, and the limitless potential of the second wind to draw upon.
This all ties back to the image of the giant in chains that we started with. Boehme is reminding us that we're all capable of breaking free from the limitations we've imposed upon ourselves and achieving far more than we ever thought possible.
It's a powerful message, and it's one that I think is more relevant than ever in today's world. We're bombarded with messages that tell us we're not enough, that we need to buy this product or achieve that status to be happy and fulfilled. Boehme's work reminds us that true happiness and fulfillment come from within, from connecting with our spiritual source and recognizing our inherent power and potential.
It's a call to step into our greatness, to embrace the truth of who we really are, and to create a life that reflects our highest vision for ourselves. It's a lot to take in, but I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of Boehme's ideas.
We have, but hopefully this deep dive has given you a taste of the richness and depth of her work, and perhaps it sparked a curiosity to explore further on your own.
I know I'm feeling inspired to revisit some of the concepts we've discussed and see how we can apply them in my own life.
That's fantastic. And remember, you don't have to do it all at once. Start with one small step, one new practice, one positive affirmation, and see where it leads you.
It's a journey of self-discovery. And the most important thing is to be curious, to be open, and to be patient with yourself along the way.
Beautifully said. And remember, you have all the resources you need within you to create a life that's truly blessed, a life that reflects the beauty, abundance, and joy that are your birthright.
And speaking of resources, are there any specific books or websites that you would recommend for listeners who want to delve deeper into Boehme's work?
Absolutely. Boehme's book, New Thought Healing Made Plain, is readily available online and in many libraries. There are also a number of websites and online communities dedicated to New Thought principles that can provide further insights and support.
That's great to know. And I think it's also important to remember that Boehme's work is just one perspective among many. It's important to explore different philosophies and spiritual teachings to find what resonates with you personally.
Absolutely. The journey of self-discovery is a personal one, and there's no one right path for everyone.
So we've explored Boehme's ideas about thought as force, the three levels of mind, the helping hand, the quickening, the one will, and even tapping into those higher levels of energy through the second wind. It's been an incredible journey through her thought-provoking concepts.
It has been. And I think it's important to reiterate that Boehme's work isn't just about intellectual understanding. It's about putting these principles into practice in our everyday lives. It's about transforming our thoughts, our beliefs, and our actions to create a more positive and fulfilling reality for ourselves and for the world around us.
It's a call to action, to step into our power as creators and to co-create a world that reflects the beauty, abundance, and joy that are our birthright. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'm curious what insights have resonated most with you so far.
For me, it's been the interplay between the three levels of mind, the superconscious, the conscious, and the subconscious. Understanding this dynamic has given me a deeper appreciation for the power of my own thoughts and beliefs and how they shape my experience of reality.
That's a great takeaway. It reminds us that we're not just passive recipients of our circumstances. We have the power to consciously direct our minds and create a new reality for ourselves.
Exactly. And it's not about denying the challenges or difficulties we face in life. It's about approaching them with a new perspective, a new sense of empowerment, and a deep trust in the helping hand that's always guiding and supporting us.
It's about recognizing that we're not alone in this journey. We're part of something much larger and more magnificent than ourselves.
Beautifully said. So what stood out to you? What insights have you found particularly compelling or thought-provoking?
I think the idea of the second wind has really captured my imagination. It's so encouraging to think that we all have access to these hidden reserves of energy and that we can tap into them by pushing past our perceived limitations.
It's a powerful concept, isn't it? It reminds us that we're capable of far more than we think we are, and that our beliefs about our limits are often self-imposed.
Exactly. It makes me wonder what I could achieve if I could just tap into that second wind more consistently. I'm also really intrigued by Boehme's ideas about the quickening and how even challenging experiences can serve a purpose in our spiritual journey.
It's a profound insight, isn't it? It suggests that even our darkest moments can be opportunities for growth and transformation.
It's like we're being constantly refined and sculpted by our experiences,
Yeah.
even the ones that feel painful or difficult.
Precisely. And Bowman encourages us to trust that there's a higher purpose at work, even when we can't see it in the moment.
This all ties back to the idea of aligning our will with the one will, doesn't it? It's about surrendering to a wisdom greater than our own and trusting that we're being guided towards our highest good.
Absolutely. And Bowman believes that when we align with the one will, we tap into a source of unlimited power and potential.
It's like we're no longer struggling against the current. We're flowing with it.
Exactly. And Bowman believes that when we align with the one will, our lives become more effortless and joyful.
So it's not about giving up our individuality or becoming mindless robots. It's about recognizing that we're part of something larger and choosing to cooperate with that larger force rather than resist it.
Exactly. It's about remembering that we're not just here to satisfy our own selfish desires, we're here to contribute to something larger and more meaningful than ourselves.
It's a beautiful vision, isn't it? To live a life that's aligned with our highest purpose and to experience the joy and fulfillment that come from making a positive difference in the world.
It is. And Bohm believes that this vision is attainable for each and every one of us.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'm curious, what's one small step you can take today to apply Bohm's ideas in your own life?
I think I'm going to spend some time reflecting on my thoughts and beliefs, identifying any that might be limiting my potential or holding me back from experiencing the fullness of the blessed life. And I'm going to start incorporating affirmations into my daily routine to reinforce more positive and empowering beliefs. What about you?
I think I'm going to start paying more attention to those moments when I feel that second wind kicking in and see if I can identify any patterns or practices that help me access that energy more consistently. And I'm going to try to approach the challenges I face with a new perspective, remembering that they might be opportunities for growth and transformation in disguise.
Those are great intentions. And remember, even small steps can lead to big changes over time.
Exactly. It's all about consistency and commitment to the journey.
And don't forget the power of support. Surround yourself with people who uplift and inspire you, and don't hesitate to seek guidance from mentors, teachers, or spiritual communities that resonate with you.
That's great advice. And remember, we're all in this together. We're all on a journey of self-discovery and spiritual growth.
And the more we share our insights and support each other along the way, the more we all benefit.
Well said. And on that note, let's take a quick break, and we'll be back in a moment to wrap up our deep dive into Kate Atkinson Boehme's New Thought Healing Made Plain. Welcome back to our deep dive into Kate Atkinson Boehme's New Thought Healing Made Plain. We've been exploring her ideas about thought as force, the three levels of mind, the helping hand, the quickening, the one will, and even tapping into those hidden reserves of energy with the second wind.
It's been quite the journey, and I think what's so striking about Boehme's work is how she manages to, weave all these seemingly different concepts together into this cohesive and really empowering philosophy, like giving us a blueprint for creating a life of health, happiness, and abundance.
Definitely. And it all begins with understanding the power of our own minds. Bohm really emphasizes that we are not victims of our circumstances. We have the power to shape our reality through our thoughts, beliefs, and actions.
She reminds us that we're not just physical beings, we are also spiritual beings with limitless potential for healing, growth, and transformation.
It's like she's offering a new lens, a way to view our lives that empowers us to see ourselves as co-creators of our own reality.
And also to recognize that we're not alone on this journey. We have the support of the helping hand, the guidance of the one will, and that limitless potential of the second wind to help us along the way.
Absolutely. It's a really powerful reminder that we are capable of so much more than we often think. So as we wrap up our deep dive, what final thoughts would you like to leave our listeners with?
Boehme's work offers this really important message of hope and empowerment, which is especially relevant in today's world. We are constantly bombarded with these messages that can make us feel, inadequate or anxious, overwhelmed. But Boehme's philosophy reminds us that true happiness and fulfillment come from within, from connecting with our spiritual source and recognizing our inherent power and potential.
It's a call to action, to step into our greatness and embrace the truth of who we are, to create a life that reflects our highest vision for ourselves and for the world around us.
Exactly. And remember, this is a journey, not a destination. There will be ups and downs, challenges, setbacks. But the key is to just stay curious, keep learning, keep growing.
And to remember that you're not alone. There are so many resources out there to support you on your journey: Books, websites, communities, and even just, a trusted friend or a mentor. Don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help when you need it.
That's great advice. And it's also important to remember that Boehme's work is just one perspective, one among many. So explore different philosophies and spiritual teachings and healing modalities. Find what resonates with you personally.
The journey of self-discovery is unique. It's personal. And the most important thing is to stay open, to keep learning, and to trust your own inner guidance.
Beautifully said. And remember, you have all the resources you need within you to create a life that's truly blessed. A life that reflects beauty, abundance, and joy. That's your birthright.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Kate Atkinson Boehme's New Thought Healing Made Plain. We hope this has been insightful and inspiring for you, and we encourage you to keep exploring these ideas and to see how they can empower you to create a more joyful, fulfilling, and abundant life.
It's been my pleasure.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Be sure to check back daily for a brand new deep dive into another fascinating text. And if you are looking for more guidance on your journey to becoming an ultimate master, visit us at www.ultimatemasters.org coaching or send us a message on WhatsApp at +256 771 324 119. Don't forget to share this deep dive with anyone who might benefit from Boehme's wisdom. Until next time, keep diving deep and keep unleashing your inner giant.